William Gaunt starred in his first television series, Sergeant Cork, in 1963, and went on to appear in many shows, including the internationally successful The Champions in 1968. He was brought up in Pudsey in West Yorkshire, and after his national service was expected to return there, but he had other plans.
I was expected to go back and join my father's firm as an article clerk to become a solicitor. But having escaped into the army, I was more independent-minded than I certainly was before I went in to the army. So I decided, myself and another soldier from Malta called Donald Douglas, we decided to try and audition for RADA. We didn't know of any other drama schools really, and we knew of Central School, but that's about it. And there weren't many then. So we auditioned for RADA. Donald Douglas got in, and I didn't. But I was on a sort of reserve list.
What year was this? 58? What year was this? 58, 59?
This must have been 58, I suppose, yes. 58, yeah, probably. 57, 58. And I was born in 37, so it was, I'd be 20 when I came out of the army, yeah. So 57. 58. But I was on the reserve list, in other words, they had a list and things, and I got in. And so we both got in. And in my first class there were people like Edward Fox, and in the next intake there was Sarah Miles. In the intake just before me there was Sean Phillips, and a lot of people who fell by the wayside, but quite a few that continued on. And it was a revelation to me. We had some marvellous teachers. We had the great Clifford Turner doing voice. His voice and speech in the theatre book is still in print, I believe. And Peter Barkworth was a tremendous teacher and was a working actor working in the West End in a play called Roar Like a Dove, I remember. And in another play, and he was a real working actor, but taught.
At the time, he was never off television.
Never off television. Well, that was later. Yeah. That was later.
He must have been very young.
He was quite young. Yes, he was quite young. He's gone now, but he must have been in his 30s, I suppose, at the most. He was a wonderful teacher, and he taught something called technique, which just seemed to be invaluable, and we couldn't understand why it wasn't sort of central on the curriculum, really. Apart from voice, obviously, which was very central, but there were an awful lot of other things like fencing and things like that, which we didn't think we'd have much use for, really, unless we got into Romeo and Juliet. And so he was a tremendous influence on a whole group of us, really, and particularly Edward Fox and I. We were the sort of, I suppose, the two that got on with him best, and he seemed to take us rather under his wing. He was gay, of course, but was a tremendous man, and I kept up with him right to the end. Used to see him occasionally.
When did he die?
He died about 3 years ago, I suppose, 5 years ago. I don't know.
I don't remember hearing about that.
Yeah, and but he was tremendous. Clifford was an even greater influence. Clifford Turner, a great voice teacher, delightful man. Everybody loved him and thought he was extraordinary. He'd get us all to lie down on the floor and for doing relaxation and breathing, etc., and he'd speak to us very quietly. He had this wonderful voice, marvellous sort of mellifluous voice, and he often used to fall asleep. And he'd stop speaking, and we'd look up, and he'd be there, because he was getting on a bit. And he was a wonderful teacher, though, and I arrived on the first day, and I, with my West Riding background, and having been in the army, and we all had to do a piece for him, and I decided to do the chorus from Henry V as my piece for him. And I started, "Oh, for a muse of fire." And he just went, "Oh," ho, 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 ho. And I continued on, and he just continued to chuckle with this broad West Riding Yorkshire accent. And I was mortified, obviously, and desperate about it. And I said to him at the end of the lesson, you know, or probably a bit later, I don't know when, but at some stage in the first term, how do you think I'm getting on? He said, "Oh, you're getting on all right." But he said, you could always come to me, you know, for a few sessions privately, one-to-one. And so I said, "Oh, yes, I'd like to do that." And he had an office, and he used to teach at RADA and at Central School. And he had an office at Central School where he used to take private pupils, like me. And he said, "I charge a guinea." And I said, a guinea? Yes. I said, "Is that for how many weeks?" 6 weeks. He suggested I come to him. I said, "Is that for the 6 weeks?" No. No. That's for we. So, and I was on a £3 grant from the West Riding County Council in Wakefield. I worked quite a lot in pubs and cafes and stuff as well, near RADA in Gower Street, well, Tottenham Court Road around there. Bertorelli's, a famous Italian restaurant, several of us have worked in. But anyway, I spent this 6 guineas, £6, 6 shillings, probably the best investment I've ever made in myself.
You still had your Yorkshire accent when you went to RADA?
I can use it.
No, did you have it? Did you still have it? Your Yorkshire accent when you went to RADA?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yes, it came out in that "Oh, for a muse of fire." Oh, for a muse of fire.
And why not?
And why not? Exactly. Nowadays it would be lauded. You know, you could go and work for the dreaded Barry Rutter up in Northern States. But RADA, then you had to eradicate that. It wasn't.
Yeah, I think you just missed. You were a couple of years before it became sort of almost de rigueur.
Yes, exactly, absolutely, and then it suddenly became de rigueur. But no, it received pronunciation. We had to have our P. Otherwise, you would not get any work, I'm afraid, if you talk like that.
Were there problems getting a place if you had a regional accent in RADA?
No.
Or were they confident that they could knock it out of you?
No, I think that John Fernald, who'd not long taken over from Sir Kenneth Barnes, who was there for years and years, John Fernald was a bit of a new broom at RADA, and I think he was probably encouraging. But there were still quite a lot of old teachers there. There was a woman called, what was her name, who sort of taught genteel dance. And Amy Bolt, I think her name was, and she was ancient. She probably was only about 50, but she seemed incredibly ancient to us. And there was Madame Federal, who did sort of movement, and she was sort of a bit butch, I think, and Froschlein, who did fencing, who was sort of, they were scars and all that. It was extraordinary, sort of Prussian. So it was in transition. So I think that's why I got in, and obviously John Fernald knew that they could sort that part of it out. Then an extraordinary thing happened to me. There was a competition. It was announced that all leavers from all the drama schools in London and Bristol could audition to go to America to join a newly built theatre in Dallas, in Texas, Dallas Theatre Center, and Charles Lawton himself.
So this was what, 59?
This was 59. Charles Lawton himself was going to host the auditions with a woman called Alice Gachet, who was quite a well-known teacher and performer, and myself and a boy called Barry Boys, whose brother was a theatrical photographer called Michael Boys, who was quite well known. Yeah, And Barry Boyce and I were chosen by Charles Lawton. I did the final speech from the Diary of Anna Frank, where Mr. Frank describes how he discovered that Anna had died. And it's a very emotional, probably quite sentimental now speech. But I saw Charles Lawton, whose emotions were very on the surface, I think, weeping away before I got to the end. And I thought I might be in with a chance here, I think. And sure enough, off we went. Cheapest way to go to America in those days, to Dallas in Texas, was to take a boat across the Atlantic and then take a Greyhound bus from New York to Dallas. So the journey took 2 weeks and a bit, or about 2 weeks really. And so we completed that, and I spent a year at the Dallas Theatre Center.
And you were doing rap?
Yes, we were. We did Hamlet. There was a big company, a company of 75.
Mainly American, only 2 young English.
No, from all over the world.
Oh, okay.
And we did a lot of plays. We did new plays. We did Hamlet, for example, and Burgess Meredith came to play Hamlet. But there were 2 other Hamlets, because Paul Baker, who directed it, decided he would have 3 of each character. Main characters in the play, so that the soliloquies could be conversations amongst the same character, right? So, what a rogue and pleasant say am I, or to be or not to be? That is the question. 3 characters, and there were about 27 bodies on the stage at the end, but that was a minor.
Did it work?
Not really, no. Too many people, too confusing. We did it on a huge ramp at the end. But we also did a lot of quite conventional productions. We did The Importance, and I played Jack, and Barry played Algy, and we had a woman called Mary Lou Hoyle, who came from the South, played Lady Bracknell. So it was a handbag and all that.